Linda, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I usually kind of just open it up with a really open-ended question. What's your story? Can you tell us how you got started?
So how I got started with open water swimming specifically.
Well, you could tell us your
Okay.
story. Tell us
Okay,
about
so
you.
I have so many stories. Stories are what we do.
Yes.
I'm Melinda Menzer, and I am a long distance open water swimmer. And I started swimming as a child, year round swim team, not particularly good, not particularly fast, but I loved it. And I returned to swimming as an adult. And about 10 years ago, I found out about open water swimming. It was not a thing I had known about. And I started swimming. And I think it was after Swim the Loop. I think it was maybe, I can't remember if it was the first or second time I did Swim the Loop in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, which was 3.1 miles. And I swam it, and I said, I bet I can go further than this. Let's see how far I can go. And so I signed up for a 10-mile swim, the Minnetonka Challenge, and I'm pretty happy around the 10-mile mark. I could go a bit longer. I'm thinking about Tahoe someday, but I just found that I really enjoyed open water swimming. And I have, in the last few years, starting in 2017, I have brought together my love for open water swimming with a cause that is very important to me. So I am the swimmer behind Swim for HIAS, which is a project to raise awareness and to raise money for HIAS, HIAS. HIAS is the world's oldest refugee agency. It's a Jewish American refugee agency working to help refugees and asylum seekers reach freedom and sanctuary in the United States. So I have been swimming for them, and I've done 2 swims for them. The most recent one, I swam from the United States to Mexico, touched land, came back, 10.2-mile swim in Amistad Reservoir on the US-Mexico border in November. So I'm a swimmer, and I'm an advocate for refugees and asylum seekers, and I'm bringing those 2 loves together.
I love that. What do you think it is that draws you to marathons?
I am not a sprinter. You can't see my full body, but trust me, I'm not built like a sprinter. I'm built for distance, not for speed. And uh, uh, I enjoy the meditative aspect of swimming very much, and the rhythm of swimming. I swim in beautiful places. I'm sort of a sightseer. Um, I live in upstate South Carolina, which means that I'm a lake swimmer primarily. When people hear I'm from South Carolina, they usually think of the ocean, but I am up in the mountains, or right at the foot of the mountains. So primarily I swim in Lake Jocassee, which has got to be the most beautiful lake in the world. It's gorgeous. The water is so clear, and it's just a joy to swim there, to look at the water and the trees and the mountains, and my beautiful kayaker. You have to have a good looking kayaker, because you're looking at that person a lot out there. So, I swim. Several years ago, somebody described me to myself as an endurance swimmer, as an endurance athlete, she said. And I thought, well, I'm not, I don't think of myself as an endurance athlete. I think of myself as a person with some mental health issues that can be controlled by a lot of swimming. And it feeds something inside me, the swimming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. How do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim?
Oh, well, I knit as well as swim. I recently taught myself how to crochet, and there are project knitters and there are process knitters, right? There are people who knit to create something, and there are people who knit to knit. and I knit to knit, and I swim to swim. Um, it is a great feeling to finish a marathon swim, but I'm not swimming to finish. I'm swimming to swim. So I have done swims that I have been very glad that they were over. But for me, it's not so much the finishing as the swimming.
Hmm.
So I'm not a person who has a moment of triumph at the end of a swim. I'm a person who has some sort of moment of tranquility, or I don't know. I'm getting overly spiritual here, but some sort of moment of grace there in the middle of the swim. So uh, I have one of my favorite events that I've ever done was uh, the 4-day SCAR. You all know about SCAR in Arizona. Okay, well, the best thing about SCAR is you get up the next morning and you swim again.
Again, exactly.
You swim again. And after 4 days, you feel like, okay, I've done some swimming. So in any case, I'm not big into the finish. Somewhere in the middle, there's some wonderful moment, and that's the moment I'm swimming for.
I love that. I love that a lot. I usually ask the question kind of, are you a process or an outcome person?
Mm,
You totally nailed it
right.
right there with the,
Uh-huh.
I like the correlation to knitting too. That's
When I
fantastic.
when I did the most recent swim for HIAS, so
Hmm.
I swam across Amistad Reservoir, which is like every lake in Texas. It's on the Texas Mexico border. Like every lake in Texas, it's a dammed lake, right? It was created by a dam, and I could see the dam as I was swimming it, and I could also see the bridge. Um, so it's the Rio Grande is underneath the lake, the reservoir, and I could see the bridge as I was swimming across. And there's, I don't know, a little hut, a little office in the middle with an American flag on one side and a Mexican flag on the other. And so when I crossed the border, I could see it, right? I knew the moment I crossed the border. So for
Hmm.
me, maybe that's like the ending of a swim. But it got to come in the middle, and I got to do it twice, right?
Yeah.
I could see when I crossed over, there we are, now I'm in the US, now I'm in Mexico. We went, touched land, and then came back. And so that moment in the middle speaks to me a lot. That moment when you're in the middle.
Yeah, I've done the Border Buster in Vermont,
Aha,
so
yes,
so I appreciate the fluidity of the borders in every sense, and in search of
yes,
memory as well. So I've had that experience of passing over the border. It's a
right.
pretty crazy.
It is. It is. And, for the Mexican border, um, I mean, just speaking to the mission or the purpose of Swim for HIAS. It's such a politicized space. Um, you know, the way when the way we talk about the border as if it were some sort of war zone,
Mhm.
or a site of contagion, the usual ugly metaphors that are associated with the border. But for the people who live on the border, it is their lives. Many of them cross across every day. They'll live on one side, work on the other. And when you are in the middle of the water, and there is no line, and there is no fence, there is no wall.
Mhm.
The border is fluid. I was the same person on either side of the line, right? Whatever, the water was the same. So uh, that swim sort of enacted for me, I think, the way we should be thinking about borders, the way we should be thinking about the movement of people.
Mhm.
Um, and uh, and it was a really beautiful moment. I don't know if any of you. I grew up in Dallas, so I think of the world in terms of Texas, but the great big Texas sky. So I had the great big Texas sky, which the minute I crossed the border, it was the great big Mexican sky. I mean, I love that sky. Same sky.
Yeah, yeah, for every single one of us.
Yeah.
Uh, how do we How do we communicate that better with other people? Do you have any ideas
Right.
on that?
Well, I communicate by swimming, which is funny, right? You don't think about swimming as people think about swimming as a isolating activity to some extent, and it is. I mean, when you're swimming a very long distance, you are in your head, um, but at the same time, open water swimming is such a team activity, right? I mean, I talk about it as if it was just me by myself. I swam to Mexico and back. I organized this swim, but in fact, it wasn't just me. I had two friends kayaking alongside me, both of whom were deeply committed to um, uh, justice, forms of social justice, and volunteered to come along with me. Um, my mother was there. My husband was there. My kids were there. My kid's boyfriend was there. We met the boyfriend. I had never met the boyfriend before, and the boyfriend came to support the swim, and he was fantastic. He just put up with all our nonsense. So swimming is a community, and we talk to each other, and to some extent, we. I don't think I don't think about swimming as inspirational necessarily to others, but swimming can communicate a message, right? Lynne Cox, the incredible Lynne Cox, who you had on this, right? I've read every word that woman has ever written several times. I've taught I am a professor of English, my day job. I've taught her work. And she talks very much about how swimming can bring people together, how swimming communicates this positive message of the sort of a unity of humanity. She has that moment when she crosses the international date line in her Bering Strait swim, which was very much an inspiration for me, thinking about crossing that border.
Mm-hmm.
So we can communicate through swimming.
I love that idea. Just feels hard to reach people sometimes, but I guess we just have to keep trying, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the swim that you're the most proud of?
Okay. Well, I'm very proud of the swim to the swim across the border. And the reason that I'm very proud of the swim across the border was that, well, it was a big swim, 10.2 miles, took a while, completely new to me, completely new to everybody who was participating. And also it's the first thing that I really organized myself, right? So when I did SCAR, I realized that at some point you stop doing events, or you don't stop doing events, but you stop having events to do, and you start thinking about swims you want to do and organize yourself. It seems to me many of the people I met had made that move. And so I organized that swim for myself. The Amistad Reservoir is part of it's Amistad National Recreation Area. So it's not a national park, but it's under the administration of a national park. It's part of the National Park Service. So I had to be in communication with the National Park Service. I got the permits. I found out how to do this legally. This was not an act of civil disobedience. Everything that I did was perfectly legal. So it required me to do that sort of work in advance that I had never done before. So in that way, it was a new stretch for me. It was it was just a completely new experience. And I'm talking to people about, park permits, and I'm talking to people about, Border Patrol. Is Border Patrol going to come grab me and drag me out of the water? No, it's not. It's perfectly legal to be in that water. as long as I didn't fully exit the water on the Mexican side, I didn't have to do anything. If I had fully exited the water on the Mexican side, I would have had to go back through customs and border patrol on the way back, but I didn't. Kept my feet in the water, I promise. So in any case, it was an organizational challenge. The swim that I loved swimming, and the swim that I think, or I guess the swims that I think ruined me to some extent, was swimming Scar. So I swam Scar in 2000, I guess it was 2018. I was on sabbatical that spring, and I thought, okay, this is the only way I'm going to have a week off in April to do this until I retire.
Right.
So I was on sabbatical in the spring. I could, I was working, but I could reorganize my schedule. And the thing about Scar is that, there's no rules. There are no buoys. You start at one end of a lake and you swim to the other end of the lake, and that's it, right? And when I say it ruined me, I mean, I think it did to some extent. I'm no longer interested in swimming around laps around buoys.
That kind of ruin, I get it now.
Right? And, I am organizing, or I'm doing more and more of my own swimming, right? I have a friend who has a kayak. Turns out I'm the most fortunate woman in the world. Not only does she love to kayak, she promises me that it's more fun to go out with a swimmer. That, she feels like she's doing something when she's piloting. I mean, could this be true?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
But anyway, so she and I have been going out a lot this summer, and we just pick a point on the map and we head for it. And then, the Lake Jocassee has waterfalls. So you swim 3.5, 4 miles out to a waterfall, hang out for a bit, swim back.
Wow.
No buoys, no rules, no one drafting off me. Right. I have threatened to punch people in the face for being on my toes. It's just you and your kayaker in the water. And Scar was like that, for 4 days. And my kayaker there was fantastic. My nephew. So my on my husband's side. So his sister's son, who is an adult, young adult in his early 20s. He was my kayaker. He was fantastic. So it was just a really great experience to get up every morning, like I said, get up early every morning, swim a really long way, eat a lot of food, go to bed, do it again the next day. That's just what I want to do.
That's wonderful. I can appreciate that so much.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't been able to do all of the Scar days because of I guess one of the things that someone asked us in the chat was, how did you train for the colder temperatures, or how did you acclimatize to handle that?
Oh, for Scar? Okay, so I overtrain for everything. It's become clear to me as time goes on that, I could back off a bit. So to acclimatize for Scar, my year, Canyon was quite cold. I think 20% of the field got pulled out for hypothermia in the first couple miles. And then it warmed up a bit, but it was well under 60. I think it was 58, 57 at the start. It was quite cold. That was one of the great things about my kayaker. He didn't tell me what was going on, right? I mean, I saw boats going up and down the lake, but I didn't realize they were pulling people out. So I just kept swimming. But I acclimatized for Scar by doing crazy things. I went out to my lake, in February and March, and swam for short periods of time. I'm not into wetsuits, so I didn't swim with a wetsuit. I swam at a friend's pool in the winter. They weren't heating their pool. And, I am in South Carolina, so it's not like it was icy, but it was
Right.
cold. um,
It's almost
uh,
perfect.
yeah, no, it was really quite good. I went out to, you know, my friends are great, but they're not as crazy as I am. So, people would go out to the lake with me and stand on the shore while I swam for 10 minutes rather than swimming with me. Um, I had a friend who went out once and he said, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever done." And he didn't go again. But so I just got myself into the water as often as I could. Um, you know, I tried to do, sit in a cold bath, but all that did was make me hungry. It made
I
me
can,
tremendously hungry, and that's all right. But so just getting out there, just getting in cold water. But I know it was a real problem my year, and I spoke to a woman who had far more, much more swimming experience than I did, who was talking about how she had gotten pulled out of Canyon. This was on our way, I think, to swim Roosevelt. Um, and she said, "I'm from Houston. There just was no cold water."
hmm
She couldn't really get into cold water as often as I could. So I just tried to get myself in the water as often as possible.
That's great.
Yeah, that's all you could do.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's how you have to prepare yourself for that kind of
Yeah.
challenge, and that's the tough part of one of many tough parts about SCAR. It's the cold
Yes,
water early in the year and all that. But
right. Well, you all may have had this kind of experience too, but SCAR was fascinating because I met swimmers from all sorts, well, all over the world, but with all sorts of different kinds of experiences. So there were the people who are complaining after the first lake, Saguaro, because it was too hot, right? So like the Pacific people, too hot. It was 70 degrees. How are we supposed to be able to swim in this, right? Talking about how difficult, well, they weren't complaining, but how different it is rather than difficult to swim in fresh water rather than salt. And
Mhm.
so I really started to understand myself as, oh, I am a lake swimmer. This is not, by choice, but because of where I am prepared to swim in particular ways and in particular places by the fact that I train in lakes. I'd love to get the opportunity to spend more time in the ocean, and maybe in the future it will happen. But how different the experiences were for different people. People who just thought nothing of getting in 60-degree water every day and swimming. And I realized that, biological differences aside, we have them, we have our own bodies to live in. But you really can get acclimatized to lots of different conditions. I think you just have to swim in it. You just get in the water, swim in it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
I
can
think
only swim in the water you're in.
right. I think there's an innate curiosity that maybe open water swimmers, or like specifically I think marathon swimmers have, that it's kind of
Mhm.
something I've been trying to get to the bottom of for myself.
Mhm.
But by talking to you guys, it kind of helps me bring up what it is. But we're really curious about, what'll happen. Like let's just try this, and we're aware of our bodies and we're aware of,
Right.
the surroundings that we're in. So it's um anyway, I love that. I love that kind of little thing that connects us, is that we all
Yes.
kind of have that curiosity. Tell us how you get through some like hard parts of a swim. It sounds like you
Well,
love swimming. So
I
there's
do.
is
But
there
there are
ever
always
a
hard
time in a
parts.
swim? Yeah, how do you
Right.
get through those?
Right. There's a moment in every swim where you say, this is this again, like
What
my
was I
friend, this is
thinking?
the stupidest thing I've ever done, right? Or I am done here, right? And I have gotten to the point that I know when it's coming, right? And I plan for it, right? I recognize, it's usually someplace, no matter how long the swim is, it's usually someplace around the start of the last mile, where you just say, I'm done here. I think I've made my point. Why am I doing this? But I guess, the first thing is you got to realize that that's going to happen to you, right? That you
hmm
can't, um, don't try to avoid that moment, I guess is what I'm saying, know that moment is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be bad moments, right? And the idea is that you swim through them. And, you know, in those moments, I think of my team for what it's worth. I think of my people, my family. And one of the people I think of, um, growing up, like I said, I grew up in Dallas, and one of my friends at school and also on the swim team with me was a woman named Carrie Fitzmaurice. Carrie was the strongest woman I've ever known. She was incredible. And she swam in the lane next to me for years, or the lane with me for years. And Carrie developed ovarian cancer, and she beat it and came back as breast cancer. She beat it and it came back as ovarian cancer. Anyway, ovarian cancer, it's evil stuff, right? In the very bad moments, I think of Carrie. I got Carrie swimming with me, right? I say, okay, Carrie, we're going to get through this, right? It's very easy for me to imagine her in the next lane, swimming beside me. The first 10-mile swim I did, when I had that moment and I thought, okay, let's see how far I can swim. I signed up for the Minnetonka Challenge up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the first 10-mile swim I found when I started Googling things. But I realized quickly that it was basically in one of my best friend's hometowns, or well, her new town. So Elena, Carrie, and I grew up together in Dallas. Carrie was living in DC at the time. My friend Elena was living outside of Minneapolis. And so I said, I'm going to do this swim. And Elena said, that's just in my backyard. My husband will be your kayaker. And Carrie said, I'm coming out to be your team, to be your crew. And we met in Minnesota and we swam that swim. And I did the first 10-mile swim with Elena and Carrie there, another friend from school. I mean, these are people I've known since I was 7, 8 years old. My friend Nancy, they were there for the first 10-mile swim. So my team was there, right? Mike was the only one in the water with me in his kayak, but they were there. So I had them with me. I always have them with me, no matter where I'm swimming. Right. Yeah. You can, when you run out of your own strength, you can swim on the strength of the people who love you.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Carrie, well, know the symptoms of ovarian cancer, right?
Right.
They used to call it the silent cancer. But if you experience, bloating, if you experience, changes in your body, go talk to your doctor. She caught it early and she lived almost 9 years.
Oh, wow.
After her first diagnosis, which is sadly a win, counts as a win for ovarian cancer. She was just incredible. So in any case, I got Carrie.
Yeah.
She's my secret weapon. I'm sure you have someone too, though. Everybody's got someone.
Yeah. Darren Miller called it the third boat. That was what helped. So I guess he's writing a book. Something to look forward to.
Or the dolphins, right? The dolphins come. When things are bad, the dolphins will come.
Yeah. How has the pandemic been for you?
Oh, it's how has the pandemic been for me? I'm not really enjoying the pandemic. At first, well, speaking as a swimmer, at first I was miserable because my pool was closed. And I am not a land person, but I know that I require regular exercise, right? I need to be taken out and exercised, like the dog. Me too. So I took up running, and I think it was the third time in my life that I've decided I'm going to take up running. It went better than any time before because I was just so mad. Was just so mad that my pool and my lakes had been taken from me too. I should say, because the lake that I swim at could only be accessed through State Park, which was closed. So I ran. I ran. Big people can't see me. Scare quotes around ran. And I ran for, I guess, a good 2 months. After the first 4 weeks, as a present, I bought myself a T-shirt that says "Running sucks," and then I wore that shirt every time I went running. After that, the pools, or one pool in my area opened, and so I joined it, and I've been swimming there. I think it's not a no risk activity, but it's a relatively low risk activity. So I'm not swimming at my home pool, but this pool has I almost always have my own lane. Sometimes I'm there, I have the whole 50-meter pool to myself. I know when the downtime is, and I go during the downtime. And they have, the walls that open up like garage door, right? So there's constant airflow, all that stuff. So what I'm saying is, it's a relatively safe place to swim. And then also, again, because of the pandemic, my kayaker has been furloughed. She actually went back to work yesterday. My kayaker had been furloughed, so she was completely free. And so once the state parks opened up again, I've been going out to Jocassee at least once a week. And that's just been such a relief. It's my normal. And Jocassee, I really think of Jocassee as my lake. That's my lake. I know I let other people swim in it, but it's my lake. I have been thrown out of my pool. I'm swimming at somebody else's pool, but that's my lake. And so I'm swimming in it. I've got Danielle in the kayak next to me. And we're mapping out that lake. It's amazing. We've done some routes that I've never done before. And, going to swim someplace in this, it's a good sized lake. Going to swim in a direction you haven't swum before is fascinating, but also coming back from a direction that you haven't been before. So you see where you started from a different angle. I mean, I don't see well anyway, but I'm very lucky to have Danielle with me. She's charting the way. But just seeing the dock from a different perspective has been just really eye-opening to me, right? The world looks different depending upon where you're floating in it.
Yep.
We went out maybe 2 weeks ago, and there's Lake Jocassee is also a man-made lake, and there's a wall, a rock wall on one side of it. And so for ages, I've been thinking about swimming across to that rock wall, doing a flip turn and coming back. All right, so I got to do a flip turn on that wall a couple weeks ago. Nice. That was fun. So the swimming has been okay. As I said, I'm an English professor. I'm going. We actually have sort of an opening meeting for the fall term this morning in a little bit, late morning. So soon I will be going back to teaching, and when I'm not swimming, I'm madly prepping for that. Madly prepping to swim or to teach in any environment. Teaching in a classroom, teaching from this table, this room that I'm in. Just sort of getting ready for whatever happens, because I think it's impossible to know what's going to happen. So the swimming has been it's been really a balm in these times, right? I was so miserable when I couldn't swim.
Yeah.
That was a bad time.
I'd really love to see a picture of that lake if you have one.
Oh, sure. I mean, my Facebook feed is pretty much
Okay,
that lake. Oh,
I'll
look
just
at
spend
that
some
lake.
time.
Oh, look at that lake a little bit later in the day.
Okay.
Oh, look at that tree. Jocassee is an absolutely beautiful location. People that, the water is so clear. People compare it to the Caribbean.
Hmm.
Um, it's I when we're swimming very close to the shore, I can see the fish. I can see turtles. I really am swimming for the scenery. Once I was out in the middle of the lake and I saw a school of fish underneath me. They went, they were moving in unison underneath me. It was fantastic. So I highly recommend Lake Jocassee. Come and swim.
Awesome. Okay. Blake says you need to solo swim the whole thing and document it.
you know, there it's called the state park is called Devil's Fork State Park, and the reason is because the lake is the Devil's Fork. It has three funky looking tines, and I think one of the things I could do would be to swim from, say, one edge of the lake down where the state park is, all the way up to the end of one of the tines. And I'm pretty sure no one's ever done that. And I'm pretty sure that's got to be, good 10 miles one way, maybe more.
Hmm.
So I would love to do that. I'm thinking about it.
Do you have any swims on your radar right now?
Well, everything's been canceled.
Yes.
Right. So I'm trying to swim for the day, just swim. There are things that there are swims that I really like to do. And I guess, first on that list is Tahoe. I'd really love to swim Lake Tahoe. Again, I'm swimming for the scenery and I hear it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was, a friend was telling me about her experience swimming it. I didn't realize you start at night.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was put off by that, but then I swam Scar, and the last swim is nighttime, and I was like, this is great. I could do this. So I'd really like to do the length of Tahoe. I think that's the thing that's next on my list. At the same time, I'm also thinking about what else I could do for HIAS. So a few years ago, a group of people, I don't know if any of you were involved in this, but I need to find the people who did it. A group of people swam from San Diego across to Mexico. And they didn't go both ways. They swam across to Mexico, got out. I think they had a little party. They had a little do. I've seen news reports on it. And I have thought about doing that swim perhaps in some other way. The thing that is so appealing about that swim is, again, I've just seen the photos, but the fence, the wall between the US and Mexico, it runs down the beach and into the water. It runs into the water. Like, we have, as a nation, the nerve to try to fence the water. That just pisses me off so much to look at that fence in the water. So I'd really like to go swim around that fence. I've also thought about the Texas side, Matamoros, sort of the Brownsville end of things. That's got a lot of barrier islands going on. So I don't know exactly how that would work. But I'm really interested in the idea of swimming across borders and swimming right through those borders. So that is also on my radar. So Tahoe for fun. I get you swim across some border in Tahoe, don't you? You swim from one.
You swim from California to Nevada.
Okay, so there it is. I'm
Yeah.
busting through that border. But that view of that beach with the fence running into the water. I want to swim past that fence the worst way.
Yeah, it's a good one. Sounds like Blake might be able to connect you.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I mean, part of my my family's, well, from perhaps like everybody else's family. My family's history coming into the United States is complicated. But, you know, I'm alive today because my grandfather was permitted to immigrate to the United States. And really, the rest of his family was not. And the reason for that has everything to do with borders. He was born on the right side of a border. He was born in what was then German territory. He had German citizenship. Today, this area is Kaliningrad, and that doesn't make any sense. But at the time, it was East Prussia. The rest of his family was born not 10 miles away in Lithuania. They had Lithuanian papers. They had Lithuanian citizenship. They're the same family with the same parents, same people. But my grandfather, largely by virtue of his German citizenship, at the time of the US immigration quotas, where we had quotas for different countries, was permitted to immigrate to the US because he was German. I mean, the irony of this.
Wow.
Because he was German, he got in as a German citizen. Then, of course, Germany stripped all the Jews of their citizenship, and all but one of his family members were murdered in the Holocaust. So I'm very much aware of how much of a difference those pieces of paper make, how absurd the difference that those pieces of paper that say I was born on one side of a line or another. So it appeals to me in many ways to swim across those lines.
Yes, please keep swimming across those lines. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Melinda. We're running out of time.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. This was delightful. And I am aware that things are going on in the chat, and I need to. I haven't been paying attention to them.
She is good
because I've been talking to, but I will save them and I will read them so that I can respond to them later. But anyway,
yeah, I can send you the transcript.
Awesome, that would be terrific. Please send me the transcript.
Yes,
you all can find me on Facebook, and you can find me lots of ways.
It's true. All right, you guys have a great day. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.